Yeah, here we go. This is the Shelter FootyCast coming to you live from the BackChat Studios. No Scully today, but we've got the Hammer in town alongside Mark Reddings, myself. Great to have your company. And, of course, if you are having a listen or a look, socials at Shelter FootyCast. We love your feedback. FootyCast at shelterbrewing.com.au. YouTube BackChat. We've got the Shelter FootyCast playlist, you name it. Today we're going to talk about our Thirsty Camel Clanger of the Week. Don't run out of your favourites. Get your shelters at Thirsty Camel. And don't forget, Dice is going to be performing down there at the magnificent Shelter. September 22, the long weekend. We thought Hammer might be engaged in playing finals, but Hammer,
I'll be there now. I'll be there with bells on. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Now, the name Brayshaw, let's begin with the hot topics of the weekend. The name Brayshaw has certainly been prominent, and there's so many hot topics from 1 week of the finals, but the most obvious is the case involving your brother and Brayden Maynard, which, got to be honest, has footy people divided as to what they think the result of this should be.
It does, yeah. It's an interesting one because it is my brother, but I think it'll set a precedent for what's going to happen for a long time in football, I think, whether or not he gets off or whether he doesn't. I think if this happened in round 3, sweet, no worries, mate, you've got weeks. The scrutiny comes under the fact that I think the AFL are desperate for Collingwood to win a premiership. They want the supporters to go nuts. They've got 106,000 members. They want to do everything they can, in my opinion, for that to happen. The world wants to see that to happen, or the Collingwood fans do anyway, and they've got a very loud voice. So a lot of that is driven by the Collingwood fans, and I think a few people at the AFL that want to see Collingwood win. But duty of care for a player, whether or not that comes into account, I don't know. I mean, the MRO wanted to knock it away straight away and not even look at it. So for Laura Kane to step in and say, well, actually, this is a pretty serious incident. Let's have a look. Good on her. Well done. Stepped straight into her role and gone bang. So, we'll find out tomorrow night, and then that'll get appealed and probably don't find out till Friday, but it'll be an interesting week.
I want to get back to some of the specifics and again, I'm sort of tiptoeing, as I'm sure you are, through the legalities of this. And importantly, we've spoken about the issue of the incident, but what about Angus? How's he tracking?
He's okay, which is good. He, I got pretty emotional watching it because of his history and all the rest of it, and it's his symptoms had died down a couple of days afterwards, which was good. He's getting a scan on his brain tonight. An MRI tonight from the same doctor who had done all his previous scans, so she'll have the comparison and they'll be able to get a pretty good insight into what is going on up there, which is handy. But I was on the phone to him yesterday. He seemed in reasonably good spirits. He's happy that the symptoms are dying down / going away because he's had them before and they're shit. So he's in a good spot. He's up and about. Everyone around him is giving him some pretty good support, but for the moment he's doing all right.
So he's had a history of concussion. Is this latest incident worse than previous ones, or just an accumulation of what's previously happened to him?
Oh, I think this isn't his worst one. Certainly not. It is just an accumulation thing, though. I think in 2000 when would it have been? Maybe 2017 when he did his last when he had his last few. I think he might have done 3 in 5 weeks. He got knocked out, had the week off, came back again, got knocked out, took 3 weeks off, and then got knocked out in that very first game. And then I think he missed like 15 or 16 weeks of football. So there was a long one there, and that was where he was in his room for 8 weeks, couldn't have the lights on, couldn't listen to any music, couldn't have any noise. So that was a tough one. But he's been pretty lucky since then and hasn't really had any incidents. And so this big one now, while it's not as impactful as the other ones, and it didn't hit us hard, but it's and put him out. But he's it is just a cumulative thing, and with all the research and all the caution around concussions at the moment, it's a pretty big one for him.
Peter Jess, who's a concussion campaigner and obviously looking out for the welfare of players, and even last night I was watching on Spotlight on 7 the story of John Platten forgets the 1989 grand final. We've seen NRL players in the same boat. A really sad story. They're 25, 30 years older than your brother. There's talk that this could be the end of Angus's career. Now, whether that's a dramatisation of that. As his brother, though, what are you hoping for? His health is number one priority. Yep. So what would you say to him under those circumstances?
Oh, it's so hard. I mean, for him especially, I'm not sure if many people know it, he's engaged to Danny Frawley's daughter. So there's a lot of history there. This whole thing for years down the line is weighing heavily on him. I think as a brother, I look at it and think I want you to do what's obviously best for your health, and mental health wise, your football career is one of the most important things in your life. So if you can keep playing, then do that. If it's going to impact your life down the line and you're not going to be able to remember things, well then you might have to seriously think about it. But I mean, speaking to him before this happened, he was contemplating in the last bout of concussions whether or not it would be something that maybe he had to give it up. Then things started to progress and he was okay. And I don't want to catastrophize 5 days after the incident, but I'm sure it's going to be something that at the end of this year he will assess. He's got 6 months of off, 5 months of an off season that he will really look at and see what's best for his future and for his family's future and going forward. So yeah, it'll be, as a brother, I just want to do what's best for him, whether that's mentally being stable to play football and enjoy that, then yep. And if not, well then, he'll move on to something else. But yeah, I don't think it's a decision that will be made in the next week or two, but in the next 6 months, I think he'll look at it.
One more on him, and then just about the issue itself. Do you think he'll play again this year? Do you think he'll be available to play again this year, health-wise?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think speaking to him the last couple of days, the symptoms have died down to the point where it's just a run-of-the-mill concussion. I think he's at a point now where he's entered the protocols and it's 12 days or whatever it is. But if they win this week, I think he'll be okay for the game after the prelim. But it's whether or not he's ready to go. And yeah, obviously they got to win this week for him to be a chance. But if they do, I think he's 50-50. But I think he'd want to be able to get back and play in a premiership side. So it'll be interesting.
Okay, last sort of discussion on this before we get into the 4 finals matches from the weekend and a record number of people going to AFL grounds to watch these matches. The issue that will be looked at tomorrow night by the tribunal, and you mentioned Laura Kane, and Michael Christian decided not to assess or classify the incident. Now, in part, and I think it's a smart move to take it straight to the tribunal, because if Michael Christian alone had the decision, that I think it needs to be tried at a pretty high level, because as you say, it's going to uncharted territory. So off the back of that, what are the elements we're looking at here? I mean, the term duty of care, I think, has to be brought into account. There's classification that Laura Kane put in, I think, careless.
Yep. And
to my mind, that probably ticks that box from an AFL perspective, that there's an element of carelessness about it.
Mm-hmm. It's careless versus intentional, isn't it?
Yeah, I personally don't think. Yeah, I think it's easier to prosecute careless than intentional.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's hard for me to take any emotion out of it because it's my brother. But I've tossed and turned. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, that sort of looks football, okay. And then I saw it again, and I felt he put his hands up to smother, which is fine. That incident was okay. And then sort of turns his shoulder in, and I don't know why I thought of the incident, but there was an incident years ago in the NBA where Steven Adams had a guy try and dunk over him and was about to fall on his neck, and instead of doing nothing, Steven Adams caught him at the last second and sort of put him down, and that's duty of care, and that's within a split instant, and you can do that, I think. And I think my uncle said the other day, if it was Taylor Adams in a scratch match, he would have not dropped a shoulder into his face. So it's, I mean, while it was careless, probably you can't really argue that it's intentional because he has jumped up in the air to smother. He intended to obviously hit him at the end. Whether or not he wanted to knock him out, I don't think so. But yeah, the high impact, it's high contact. It's all, there's plenty to argue.
There's going to be biomechanists. There's going to be all sorts of legal ramifications. And just as we finish it off, let's go back to the origins of their relationship. They do know each other pretty well. Having played footy,
they played footy together.
The word is that Brayden took a bottle of wine over and they had a chat. So from a personal note, I don't think there's any ill feeling, or is there?
I don't think there's ill feeling. Angus is obviously pretty annoyed that he got him in the face and has knocked him out. But I don't think it's not. He doesn't hate him. It's not anything like that. I think it's just...
You're pissed off because you're missing finals footy.
Pissed off because you're missing finals footy, I think, is the gist of their relationship at the moment. But they played junior footy together at the Hampton Rovers, so they know each other. So, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I'm sure there'll be good lawyers going at it for a long time, and, this one might take a few hours.
Absolutely. Really appreciate your insight. This is the Shelter FootyCast with Hammer and Skeet. No, it was good to chat with you on that, Hammer, because there's questions to be asked, and you're in a very interesting position, given he's your brother, as they say. So that'll be played out over the next day, so not just 24 hours, but maybe the rest of the week. Let's get into the 4 games and go back to that Thursday night game between Collingwood and Melbourne. And I think it's fair to say with 69 inside 50s, Melbourne have had their chances to win that game. Collingwood, though, started really well. They were the better side for large portions of the match, or portions of the match. How do you reflect on it? I know there's a side of you that thought that Melbourne were going to win that game.
I certainly did. I thought they were going to win it. I think it's a testament to how good Collingwood's defence is. Darcy Moore sets them up really, really well behind there. Isaac Quainer doesn't lose one-on-ones. They are very well set behind the football, and I don't think it helped the way that Melbourne were kicking it in, and they were just bombing it and bombing it and bombing it, and almost they didn't succumb to the pressure of finals, but it was very much a case of let's just pepper the ball in, and it wasn't working, and they didn't look to change much up, which was an interesting look. But yeah, they smashed the inside 50s. They had wider numbers, and Collingwood's defence was just too good. And yeah, it was a game that they certainly could have won, but one that got away. So look, I think if they meet each other again, it'll be a different story, and they might look to move the ball a little bit differently. But a cracking game of football. It
was 90,000 plus at the game. Max Gawn, he really was outstanding and kept Melbourne in the contest, and obviously the mids got rolling, particularly late in the piece where Petrarca and those players got moving. But from a Collingwood point of view, Bobby Hill kicking early goals, still side bottom outstanding. The Magpies, as you say, their defence was just terrific. That's the issue now moving forward. I think Collingwood, they didn't score a goal in the last quarter, so as you know, very relieved to get to a prelim, but they've got some issues to work on themselves.
They do, yeah. I mean, I think they'll be fingers crossed begging that Nick Dacos can find his way back, because he is an offensive juggernaut for them and really gets things set up and started. But I mean, for them, I think obviously, Scully says it all the time, but backs win premierships, and that's where their game sort of starts from, and they're able to lock that down. But I feel like they're just missing that link to then get it going forward and go from there. And that's something that Dacos brings and really, puts as a weapon for that team. But they would have been happy for Bobby Hill to get going early, and Sidebottom just doesn't really stop going. So they're going to need to tinker with some things, but I think their foundation is set to make a real charge at the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Jack Crisp outstanding. Quain or down back always plays really good footy. So, and Petrarca, I thought he was in trouble in the last quarter when his legs taken out from him. But from that moment, he just sparked. So it's a long way to get around to get to a grand final now with Carlton this week, then a prelim final. So there's a heap of work to be done. And most notably, as I said, inside 50s, they were struggling to create. Brodie Grundy, does he come back into the conversation this week? Or do they go with a Charlie Spargo as a small? Given that Tom McDonald, he found the footy late in the piece, but what changes would you make to that Melbourne forward line?
Yeah, I don't know. I think looking at it, the weight of inside 50s they had late, I feel like that came off the back of Petrarca moving into the middle. He played predominantly forward in the first half and then moved inside, and a bit of a case of you don't have him in there, and he's been a real weapon for them in there and makes things happen. So who's he kicking it into? I think it's hard to say you'd make changes off the back of one game, but I think the changes need to come from their method of entry, not necessarily just bombing it long, and maybe a bit more spot up and the use of Bailey Fritsch on a lead and those sort of players that can get the ball and then wheel and go. It's tough. The VFL guys, I think Casey's still in, so they've got a game next week, so I could be wrong there. I didn't check the VFL results, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't know that they can play Gawn and Grundy in the same team. That's still up for debate, but they got to do something with the way they move the footy inside 50 is, I think, probably the thing that they'll look at this week. And
just think about the prospect, and they won't want to think about this, but last year, knocked out in straight sets. They're one loss away from going out in a similar fashion. So that's going to weigh a bit on them heading into the Blues, who've probably got a free swing at them this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the Blues will be riding a real high, but Melbourne will be wanting to get this one done. Definitely, it's you try not to think about it, but it'll be hard not to after 2 years where they've been on paper one of the best sides in the comp and then been bounced out. It's I think their supporters are begging for a premiership in Melbourne, and yes, they won that one in 21 over here, but I think there was 60 or 65,000 people that went and watched a replay on the screen at the MCG. So they are desperate for a home final, MCG grand final for the Melbourne Footy Club, all those fans. So that'll be all in the back of their mind. Obviously, they'll be focusing on Carlton, but it'll be subconsciously in there.
Speaking of Carlton, Friday night they made their return to finals action. And they got the job done. It was only by 6 points. They just staggered to the line, a bit like Collingwood in the end. But they tell me the atmosphere just extraordinary. The Blues supporters out in big numbers, and Sam Walsh and Blake Acres, terrific for them. Former Docker really showing his value, and Sydney bow out. But Carlton, I think that's a result. I think, dare I say, it's good for the competition.
Great for the comp. I think personally, I think it's good for Melbourne too, because Sydney, I think, got really going in that second half and were flying. But they were, the crowd was, like, I was watching it and it was deafening. Like, you can hear the emotion of fans that have been starved of final success for so long, and you could see the passion that guys were playing with. And I mean, Blake Acres in that last quarter is, I think, the prime example of a football club who's just desperate to do anything they can to win a final. I think he had 4 or 5 efforts in a row where it was sprinting back on the D50 to try and intercept, going back on the goal line, knocking that one through. That's just being so desperate for the footy when you're 100 minutes into a game is quite remarkable. And Paddy Cripps was obviously carrying something into the game, had big padding on his ribs, so he was hurt but still managed to will them over the line. And Sam Walsh was excellent, and Charlie Curnow obviously got some hard work, got some attention put onto him, but they were able to do and work everything around that. And it was an excellent game of football to watch.
Absolutely, and they led by the best part of 5 goals. And at that point, you thought, well, now it's a question of Sydney. Will they find a way back, which they did in the last quarter, or through the back end of the third quarter. They get within a kick. They coughed up some late goals, Carlton. Just quickly, Jack Martin was pretty good at stages, but he's facing a 2-match ban. They're going to challenge that Carlton for that strike on the lizard.
That's going to be a tough one to argue. He punched him in the face, but yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Well, is it 2 or what? Can they get it down to 1? I suppose that's the best case scenario.
Yeah, best case scenario is, I don't think it didn't knock him out or anything, so outcome there. But yeah, it was a closed fist strike to the head, so it's going to be tough. I think it might be 2 down to 1 at a best, but he won't play next week. Now,
we've tried to find 2 separate thirsty camel clangers of the week, but we've lobbed and landed on the same spot, of course. Don't run out of your favourites. Grab your shelter, thirsty camel, and the big H, Harry Mackay. What is going on with his kicking for goal hammer?
It is, I don't quite get it. It's like having chipping yips on the golf course, because he has just struggled this year to kick the ball straight and to think about, where's he going to snap it? Is he going to kick a drop punt? He makes one decision and it's the wrong one. He makes the other decision, it's the wrong one. He just can't do anything right in front of goal at the moment, and that was a howler that he missed. He missed 2 pretty big sodas, didn't he?
2, you can say it's mental, but he's 12 metres out, Hammer. This is, dare I say it, these are goals that just underage footballers are kicking.
Yeah, well, I mean, he dribbled one into the post, and then he missed one from 12 metres out straight in front. I don't know what he's trying. All you need to do is just chip that. But he goes through the routine, which you should, and then he doesn't know. It was tough to watch. He almost went back, and I thought, he's going to miss this. That's where it was at. I thought he was going to miss it. It reminded me of earlier on in the year where he was just bellying snaps and doing all the rest of it. It's just tough. Like, he has to be working on his routine, his follow through, his run through, and all that sort of stuff. But I think as well, he's got to be talking to a sports psych and figuring out the mental side of how to not stress too much over a drop punt.
Yeah, the thirsty camel clanger of the week belongs to Harry Mackay, and the bottom line is, can you trust him in a final, in a clutch situation? That's moving forward.
Yeah.
He can play. Is he a player that you need at Carlton? Scully's adamant that Curnow's better for having Mackay on the team, which is probably right.
Yep.
But gee, there's going to be some heartache along the way.
Oh, there certainly will be. I mean, they won't have to worry about it this week. He's not playing, but I think if you're, I would not want to be I wouldn't envy a Carlton supporter with the grand final on the line and he's having a shot from 25 metres straight out.
10 metres out, you'd still be having your heart in your mouth. Blues get home, they take on the D's. Friday night, they'll get 90,000 to that. It's going to be a cracking game. The winner through to a prelim final. I did this game on Saturday, the Saints and the Giants at the MCG. 68,000 there. Their previous record crowd between the two clubs, 21,000. So
pretty
they put that in the shade. And the Giants, they got away to a flyer, 5-2. Their midfield, Kelly, outstanding. Through the middle, Tom Green, brilliant. They're playing some good footy.
They are. No Cornelio on the weekend?
No, I think he had an eye injury of some sort.
Yeah. They've got him to come back. They are, dare I say it, smoky, but they're hitting really good form. They've just got a really good blend of talent and passion and leadership and youth, and it's all what Toby Green's got that group believing in and doing is special. I think they've got an underrated, very, very good backline. Obviously, we sing the praises of Jack Buckley in here, but him and Sam Taylor are a phenomenal duo that can match up very well against any number of tall forward duos, and their midfield's flying, and they've got really dangerous forwards, and with Daniel and Bedford and those guys being able to play and put more forward pressure on, Briggs is a good ruck. He's an underrated big man who just lumps the ball forward, and they've got some weapons, and I think they're a real smoky going forward.
Very exciting to watch. Brent Daniels at ground level, terrific. I mean, Jesse Hogan's playing some decent footy as well. As I mentioned, Josh Kelly was terrific for them, and Riccardi with 3 goals, outstanding. I mentioned Sam Taylor. Look, he had a couple of goals kicked on him by Max King. I think it was in the second quarter, and you saw him in the second half. I mean, he's been labelled by Adam Kingsley as the best defender he's coached, which is saying something. And speaking of Kingsley, he's got to be in line for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, he has to be. I mean, he said he's the best defender he's ever coached, and that's because he doesn't have to coach Jack Buckley, plays on pure talent. But he's got to be in line for Coach of the Year. A lot of people just didn't even peg him to make anything better than the bottom 4. So the way that group is going, it's remarkable, and they're hitting form at the right time, and they are flying.
The St Kilda Footy Club, I've got to say that they probably exceeded expectations as well. So they made the finals. They bow out in the first week. They just lacked. It looked like they lacked run compared to what the Giants produced. 24 points. The margin in the end, Jack Steele was really good for them. And as I said, Max King kicked 3 goals. Sharman 2 goals early, but they look a class short of what the Giants produced. But Ross Lyon still gets a tick. Yeah,
I think he gets a tick. Another team that I didn't really peg to be playing finals footy. They came out of the box flying with injured players, and I thought, geez, how good's this? And then they levelled to a point where I thought they would, then they exceeded expectations again, and they dropped back down. So I think making a final and getting knocked out is probably where I saw them going into it. But yeah, they did. I feel like they're 1 or 2 players off that next level, which is then another player or 2 off the next level. So they're not that far off. But I think it's a credit to what Ross has been able to do for a long period of time to come in to a team like that and drive them to a final is a testament to him. So a tick for the season all over, and I think.
And Liam Henry, a Docker who's on the way out, has nominated St Kilda.
Yep.
Decent fit, do you think?
Yeah, I think a good fit. That you speak about run and the way that they looked a little bit outpaced and on the weekend, and he certainly adds that, and I think it'd be a really good fit for them.
All right, 3 down, 1 to go on the weekend of finals. It saw, I think, 280,000, something ridiculous, the best ever attended weekend, as you mentioned. You've mentioned that Collingwood, the AFL, very happy for them to keep rolling through the finals. Mm-hmm. But Brisbane and Port Adelaide, other matches were pretty tight. This one, was all done and dusted at 3/4 time. The Lions, always difficult to beat at the Gabba. In fact, perfect this year.
Yep.
But their finals record hasn't been good, but they addressed that perfectly.
They were sensational on the day. I didn't actually watch this game. I was occupied with an AFLW game that didn't go very well. But they were phenomenal by all reports. To win, how much did they win by 50 points or something in the end? Or
48.
Yeah, against a Port Adelaide side who are star-studded and jam-packed, and I still think can make a bit of noise. But I think it's one of the cheat codes of the AFL being able to play at the Gabba. As a Brisbane side, they are phenomenal. And it's going to be Melbourne or Carlton are going to play them in a prelim, and it's going to be overly difficult to get up there and get a job done. But I think they'll be looking at this as another tick of a box, and I think they're going to try and eye off. That'll be their next challenge. Can they win at the MCG?
Yeah, that's the big question. But if you're there, you're more a chance than if you're sitting
exactly right,
having a shelter on a Monday afternoon. Joe Danaher, 5 goals.
Yep.
A lot of people say that he's the most important player to them. If he can get rolling in the next 2 matches, they can win the flag.
Yeah, he's a star. He's massive. He leaps. He jumps. He's a hard matchup for any defender. But they've got a very good forward. Cam Rayner's a star.
3 goals.
He's a gun. Like they've got really just another team that's full of good players. But for a finals team moving forward, you need your key forward dominating and kicking goals and taking marks and drawing attention. And if he can continue to do that, it's going to be awfully difficult to beat him.
Yeah, Ollie Lord kicked 4 for Port Adelaide, but they missed some early shots. I'm like you. I didn't see all the match, but particularly with Marshall missing some set shots. They were 1-4 at quarter time. And Brisbane, kicking 8 goals in the third quarter, put them absolutely out of their misery. McCluggage outstanding. You mentioned Rayner, Danaher, Dunkley good. The only, I guess, plus sign, Willem Drew did a reasonable job on Lockie Neal. I suppose that's a template to try and work out how to stop him, but you put that player to sleep, so to speak, and you've got others who are just taking his place.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's not like he's the only cog in that wheel in the midfield, which is really difficult. I think when you like a few years ago with Richmond, I think Richmond win the grand final because Dusty Martin picks him up and puts him on his back, and no one tags him. So that's one you can say, if we tag him, potentially we're a chance. You tag Lockie Neal, then Dunkley goes nuts, and then Cam Rayner might come in and do some stuff. McCluggage comes in and does some stuff. So they've got players that they can work around, and it's not necessarily a one-stop fits all for Neal. And whether or not they continue to do that, Sweety's a very good player and might draw some attention. But I feel like at this level of finals footy, whoever they come up against, I mean, if Melbourne make the prelim, they're not going to tag him. Why would they tag him? Melbourne will feel like they've got the better midfield. They'll just go head to head. Carlton might put someone to him, but at the same time, they might think, let's go for it. Sam Walsh might just go to him and say head to head, who wants it? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it's a tough one for Brisbane because you stop him, you've got others, and that's, I feel like, the way with a lot of the teams going forward now.
Yeah, Port Adelaide, they've gone from hosting a qualifying final potentially in the last few weeks to now a sudden death. Rosie Butters, some of their class players have to get rolling this Saturday night, otherwise their season will be over. And Kenny Hinkley once again falling short, and that's been a bit of a theme at the Port Adelaide Footy Club. This is the Shelter FootyCast with Hammer and Skeet. Now let's just jump into some locals action, and in the WAFL, East Perth, of course, bowing out unfortunately a week or so ago. But yesterday I was at the Subiaco Claremont first semi-final. The Lions progress. Any surprise there for you?
No, not really. I watched a bit of that game, and Claremont got close. They fired a shot in the third, and then Subi just went bang and were far too good. I think they did an excellent job on shutting Bolton out of the game, who's a prime mover for them, and just too good, too classy in the end, and it'll be, can Lee Kitchen beat Peel in a final is the question for next week.
Tell you what, there's a bit of push and shove, and they were getting towards Jai Bolton just to give him some attention and words of advice, which is something to watch on with interest. East Fremantle through to the GF against Peel Thunder. Given they're already there, they're the team to beat, the Sharks.
Certainly. It was a bit like the Melbourne game, though, to be honest. Peel should have won it. I think they had a number of chances. I think they kicked a point, hit the post. Trav Collier kicked one out in the full. He also he fumbled one that he could have taken and had a snap. There was just entry after entry after entry after entry, and they were going for it.
They were coming, yeah.
They were really coming. I was speaking to Andrew about it yesterday, and he was there watching for the Peel boys, and it looked like they were, they just couldn't lose it, and then all of a sudden the siren went and they managed to find a way. But I still think East Freo are the team to beat. But if Peel get back in there, they'll feel confident. Yeah,
I'm thinking, having seen a bit of waffle, that it's East Fremantle and Peel going again in the grand final. Is that sort of way up for you? You think Subiaco can knock over?
I think Subi can knock them over. I think they're an experienced side, but they're very different from their last premiership run. The side they've got a few mainstays that are still there, but they're a different looking side, and whether or not that can knock off Peel this week is a question. But they should have beaten them in the first final.
They got 28 points at half time.
Yeah, and then they the floodgates opened up. But I feel like that's Peel's real advantage. They've got a lot of fitness with their AFL listed players, and the last few weeks they have stormed home. So it'll be if they're going to fire a shot early, Subi, it's got to be a big one.
And, of course, tonight, a huge night at Crown. Now, I don't know if you've got your tux sorted yet, although I did see a picture. You obviously have, because you saw a picture in the Sunday Times, you and Mitch Croden and
Angus
the shoe.
Yeah, it actually wasn't the tuxedo. It was a blue dinner suit. It was a blue lounge suit that I had to throw together at the last minute. But no, I got my suit at the dry cleaners, and I'm going to pick up after this. So yeah.
Well, let's narrow it down, because you're one of the. Let's be honest, you're runner-up last year, equal runner-up. You've had a better year this year than last year, in your mind.
I think so, yeah, probably. I feel like I've had a more impactful year this year. I haven't had to do as much on my own because our team has been a bit better, I think, which has been good. Mitch Croden obviously coming in helps a lot in the midfield, and last year Angus Schumacher had knee surgery at the start of the year, and that had games where it really plagued him. So those guys have been really good with myself this year, and it's been good. So yeah, I think personally, and I've kicked a lot more goals this year, which has been my big change.
So that means you're winning the medal. No, it has to be. Well, if you got a better year than last year, you must be in the mix.
Well, I think Luke Meadows had a much better year than he did last year, and he also was runner-up. And Zach Clark, I don't think, played waffle last year, so he was
Just quickly, it's all the myths. Jai Bolton obviously
Yep.
gets a ton of it yourself. You mentioned Mitch Crowe, Angus Shoemaker, Luke Meadows. But could a ruckman win it? Has he had that good a year, do you think?
I think he's been excellent. I mean, he probably doesn't... He didn't have the possessions that Delahunty had when he won the Sandover.
Yep.
And probably didn't kick as many goals as Della did, but dominated in the ruck more so than Delahunty. So I think he was... When Delahunty was in there, it was the fourth midfielder who would, get 20 hit-outs a game, whereas Clark's getting 15 to 20 touches and 50 hit-outs a game. So he is really being impactful, and it's... I just look at the game that they played, the second game we played them when they beat us. I feel like he was the best player on the ground by a mile. Had 15 odd touches, but the way that he was able to use the ball in the air with his hand, I think he had a 360-degree radius where he could hit the ball 10 metres. So he was, it'll be whether or not that catches ump's eyes. I think he's a chance. I think he's a real chance. I think he'll poll a lot of votes, and it'll be a fun count tonight.
Talk us through your mindset. If you, like last year, obviously in the mix, do you stay off the shelters till about 9, or do you weigh up how you're travelling in the vote count, or how will you approach tonight? Because you have to have a bit of, you've got to be on your game a bit if you do manage to poll the votes.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I look at last year, and I went in with zero expectations last year. I polled votes in games that I didn't think I should have.
You didn't play. You still polled votes.
Yeah. There was a game we lost to Claremont last year by 50 points, and I polled 3. Angus Shoemaker last year had 38-2 against West Coast, and I had 23-3, and I got the 3 votes. I got 2 votes in a 75-point loss to Peel. So there was some. I went into the night already having a few shelters to start the night off, and thinking, well, I'm not. This will be fun. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'll poll a few votes, but I won't go close. And I was 3 votes clear at the 10-round mark, and so I had to stop for a little bit. And then Bokhurst got 2 in a row that jumped ahead of me. And I knew from there that I think we lost the last 6, so I was like, beautiful, I'll get back on them now. And it just so happened that I was the last interview of the night. They go around and interview, and Tim Gossage was interviewing me, and I was a little bit, couldn't really, I might have been a screw loose, but it was, that was fun. But yeah, tonight I'll enjoy myself. I think we're going to poll a lot of votes on our table, so it will be fun. And
they might steal some votes off you.
Yeah, I think, obviously we will, but I think the way that it works, I don't think 3 of us will be stealing votes. One of us was getting some attention while the other 2 played okay. So that'll be the way. Obviously, I'm a little bit nervous going in. I hope to do well. And
what about how much, in all sincerity, how much? Because the Sandover medal, and we know family, and we know Sticks, the grandfather, and you've got James and Angus. I'm sure there's a great history, and they know about this history of the Sandover.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be a massive honour and a massive privilege. And my brothers are doing their thing in the AFL and have had their careers there and are playing very well. Andrew was the Lee Matthews medalist last year. Angus has won a premiership, and while my AFL career was cut short, I think I'm content with where I am, but doing the best that I can in the level that I'm at is still something that I aspire to do, and it'd be a massive honour to be even close. Last year I was stoked with coming runner-up, so to be there or thereabouts again this year would be really nice, and I'll be nervous. I'll still be having a few shelters, no worries about that. But I think I finished a lot better this year than I did last year. So if I'm close enough, I might sort of slow down. But no, I'm just looking forward to it. It'll be a fun night. It'll be good to celebrate the year of footy. And while I would have much preferred to have been sober, it'll be fun to be having a couple
Absolutely.
of
You and I
BackChat
both,
ales.
Yeah, we'll both put on the tuxedo and hopefully get through the night unscathed. By the way, it's also Hall of Fame night, so here's 4 names for you. Jan Cooper, the first
Star.
female, of course, a lot to do with the West Coast
Yep.
Eagles, and obviously female footy pioneer. Alex Rance, Richmond Premiership player. What a brilliant player he was. I think 5-time All-Australian. Of course, Dad Murray, but that's terrific. Phil Cracker.
Yeah.
The Cracker magic, you're probably too young to remember, but you would have seen the vision.
Seen the vision, and the old man speaks very, very highly of the way he was able to play footy.
You know, he drove over from Melbourne to Perth. He's just scared of flying. So
there you
Phil
go.
Cracker, he's made the journey across the Nullarbor. And last but not least, Alistair Pickett, 2-time Sandover medalist, 4-time premiership player with Subiaco. So just a nod to the WAFL. And off the back of that, there's going to be a legend inducted tonight as well, Hammer. So,
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Look forward to that.
it's plenty of action, and that's in between, of course, the voting for the Sandover medal. We'll finish off with AFLW in brief. Not
very
great for not for our WA teams. It was pretty average. Dockers beaten by Collingwood yesterday.
Yep.
And the Eagles down to the Gold Coast
Eagles
by a
got
big
done,
margin.
Yep. Yeah, not a good one for us, unfortunately. They were. I didn't really catch too much of the Freo game. Collingwood are a good side, so that's Fremantle beat them in a practice game about 3 weeks ago, and Collingwood obviously bounced back and got it done. But we were outdone. on the inside, we weren't very good at all. I think the numbers stack up terribly for us, and it's something that we're going to review pretty harshly tonight. They've got some very good players, and Charlie Rodbottom starred, and Whitford was really good, and Stanton kicked 6 for them. So
6?
Yeah, had kicked.
Jeez,
it was her 50th game on the weekend.
Was their highest? I think it was their highest score.
Their highest score ever. Yeah, it was her 50th game on the weekend, and in her previous 49 had kicked 8, and in her 50th kicked 6. So it was tough. They had a weight of inside 50s. We were very much outdone, and it's not obvious, not anything you want to do, but it's something that we'll take a lot of learnings out of and have to hit the ground running, because we've got Carlton this week who were pantsed on the weekend, 66-6 they lost to North Melbourne by. So it'll be two teams that are licking their wounds, and I think it'll be whoever can use that to get over and go to the next level will be the team that wins this weekend. So we've got to pretty quickly move on from that. It's a 10-game season and we're 2 games in, so we've got to bounce back quick, and if we dwell on it any longer, the season will be over.
Absolutely. So the Eagles in trouble. The Dockers a bit slow to begin their season, but that is your AFLW wrap. That takes us out for this Monday. Of course, you can get in touch with us by email at footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. Shelter Footycast on Instagram. Socials at Shelter Footycast on Instagram. The YouTube search, the BackChat or Shelter Footycast playlist. Don't forget Dice performing September 22 down at Shelter. It's a long weekend. Support them. Hey, Hammer. See you at the Sandover. Good luck. Hope you go well.
Thank you very much, mate. Thank you. See you there.
See you next time.